Hello, and welcome to Witty Bitties.
of Nevada.
So, we're your hosts, and here we're going to talk about multiple different things: murders, mystery, music,
And
and whatever else that makes you go, hmm. So, hopefully, we make you do that. And please like and subscribe. Give us your comments. If there's something you'd like to hear us talk about more, let us know. And we'll also be taking you to some locations within Nevada at some point. So stay tuned, keep listening, and keep watching.
like and subscribe. Hit that like button.
That was good. Good job. Okay, so we will talk about a couple things, but one thing we're going to start with is a murder. And this is, and I'm going to read it, by the way, but this is a murder mystery in the Comstock. And for you you guys, you listeners that don't know, we know that the Comstock is known as Virginia City, Gold Hill, and Silver City. And it's back in the day when the gold rush was going on. And this actually is the 1800s. And it involves a prostitute, a volunteer fire person.
Ooh.
And this also spans all the way to San Francisco. So, yes, this is pretty good. So, with no further ado, let's find out what the unanswered questions are of the murder of the notorious prostitute by the name of Julia Berlitz.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to take you back 150 years since that dreadful January morning when Mary Jane Miner left her little college in Virginia City on D Street, which D Street is still around, by the way, if you've ever been there,
Very much so.
and stepped carefully through the mud to her friend and neighbor, Julia Berlitz's back door. She could have never imagined that she was about to walk into the beginning of one of the most enduring stories in Nevada history. Now, I've never heard of this, but I didn't go to school here in Nevada.
I have definitely heard of it, and I've actually got to visit her grave.
You
So we'll
did?
have to eventually take you guys to that and show you that. That's really awesome. Only the locals know about it, by the way.
Okay, so legend and lore should find that Julia, an independent prostitute, yes, back in the day they were independent prostitutes, had been beaten and strangled to death in her bed. And that much of her. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I have dyslexia, so at times words get all messed up. So bear with me, please. And my good friend over here also at times has a speech impediment. So that's why we're just going to be witty about all this. Okay, so a stupendous, I don't know why stupendous
It's
has a
such a weird,
P.
I
It's
know.
spelt weird. It should be stupendous. But a wardrobe including silks, furs, jewelry. Now, first of all, a lady of the night is what they were called.
Back then,
She
yes.
had furs and jewelry. So
Mhm.
was she being paid in furs and jewelry or just money?
I'm
But she
thinking
must have
everything.
been she must have been really good to be paid by miners, gold prospecting.
Oh, and they didn't have a whole lot, so.
Right. Had been carried off in the dark of the night. So apparently somebody had stole her stuff. Almost a year and a half later, so it took a year and a half, a French immigrant day laborer would hang for the crime in front of the crowd of thousands. What did John Millen really kill?
Mm.
Julia. The answer, all this time later, isn't entirely clear. But since it was a cold case back then, so the murder shocked Virginia City. In January of 1867, this is like way back, the town was only 8 years old.
Wow.
So now this is 2024. So you're talking over 200, almost 200 years ago. I don't
Mm-hmm.
do math very well either. So the town was only 8 years old, but apparently very bustling, and this prostitute was making a lot of money. The city had seen its share of killings, and its residents generally accepted brawling and dueling as part of life. Well, that's because it's the miners and
Yeah.
they're getting drunk. And we do have other murders in Virginia City area that we'll talk about too. But the Burlett murder, perpetrated on a sleeping woman in her nightgown, was different. After Alf Dalton, a reporter, had been to the little cottage to see Julia's mangled body. Reporters. That wouldn't happen nowadays.
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
No,
He
absolutely not.
right. And he wrote in his diary that this person that wrote this article, worst murder ever in the city, horrible. So it must have been a disastrous sight.
Well, she's a pretty popular piece of cupcake back then. So
Piece of cupcake. Okay, so Dawkins, which is the reporter, who had known Julia, in her personal capacity.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Cupcake.
Estimated that she was about 35 years old. Well, that was kind of old for back then.
For a prostitute, yeah.
Yeah, she had been a prostitute for more than 15 years and had achieved a modest success. While she was often segregated from respectable women, well, kind of like still now, she had many friends among her peers. As an honorary member of the Virginia City Fire Engine Company #1, she had also earned some admiration in a larger community. So,
what community?
Virginia City.
Oh, okay.
So, she was a prostitute, so she was shunned. But if she was doing her volunteer firefighting stuff, oh, way to go there, Julia.
Exactly.
So, yeah, two-faced.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they were two-faced back then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Territorial Enterprise eulogized Julia as being a very kind-hearted, liberal, I cannot say this word if I look at it. Benevolent.
Benevolence.
Yeah, if I look at it, I can't say it. And charitable distribution. Few of her class gotta turn the page here. Had on the days following her murder, her friends wanted justice. Lynching. To complete matters, some feared that Julia's death was only one in a string of similar killings. Virginia City in 1863 and again in 1864 in a connection with an unsolved murders of 2 prostitutes in San Francisco. Well, that's a long way. Virginia City to San Francisco.
Yes, it is. But people did travel back then too.
Covered wagons, horses.
Absolutely.
Train. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think the train was running continentally all the way from San Francisco there. I think there might have been stops. But hey, if you guys know, let us know.
Yeah, when did the Union Pacific?
We'll have to research that. Yeah. I know I found articles in the Gold Hill newspaper back in the day. Yes, the newspaper there was known as the Gold Hill. Has articles about train tracks and coming west and everything. So we'll research. But if you guys know information, go ahead, let us know. In each case, the women were in their mid-30s or older, approaching retirement, or at least having worked long enough to accumulate some wealth.
Nice.
Yeah. So they had a retirement plan.
Yeah, they retired by their 40.
Maybe. Yeah. Each woman worked independently, lived alone, and was killed late in the night, apparently after she had retired to bed. And each woman had some connection to Virginia City. So maybe at one point, all 3 of them, well, one still a prostitute in Virginia City, but maybe the other 2 worked in Virginia City at some point. The San Francisco murders had been shockingly bloody. The victims repeatedly stabbed, The Julia murder had been done with less gore, but in all other respects, the killings shared eerie similarities. In a pre-Jack the Ripper world, oh, so this was pre-Jack the Ripper, this left reporters, police, and other prostitutes grappling with the unlikely idea.
Hmm.
The Julia murder also had large implications for Virginia City because mining production was on the decline that year and the local economy was in a recession. For those invested in the city's future, it was virtually important to keep up civic pride and investor morale.
Wow.
A lead.
Hmm.
Despite their best efforts, however, it would take Virginia City Police nearly 4 months to capture a valuable suspect. In early May, another independent prostitute awoke to find a dark figure skulking about her room and later identified him as a 37-year-old John Millen, sometimes spelt like Malayan.
Okay.
Okay, it is not at all improbable that the same room who was foully murdered, Julia, attempted to murder and rob Martha Camp last night. Most everyone believed the murderer had been caught. The man is either a perfect friend or he is scandalously belied, belied
Hmm.
by those who have some knowledge of his past history. Adding that Milan or Mellon was rumored to have once had a pretty wife in San Francisco who died mysteriously. First of all wives are pretty.
All wives die mysteriously too.
Oh, correct.
Especially back then.
Yes. It was even reported that he had confessed to Julia murder. Though he denies this, that he didn't really confess to it. So apparently the Sacramento Daily Union, which was also a paper back then, the detectives stated the detectives have learned that John was driving a water cart in San Francisco on a route in the worst part of town at the time that the prostitute was mysteriously murdered. So, is it bad timing? Or is it he did it?
Yep.
This creates deep excitement in the city. And he will hang. However, guilty as many believed him to be, the police had yet to prove it. John remained in custody on the charge of attempted robbery while they searched for clues. In late May, a woman named Mrs. No, Mrs. Doubtfire. No, Mrs. I can't even pronounce it, but Mrs. C came forward and said she'd recently bought a length of silk from him under suspicious circumstances. By the end of the day, the silk had been established as a unique piece purchased by Julia before her death. In the next few days, more shopkeepers came forward with stolen items they had unwittingly purchased from John. Then police were alerted to a house where John had stored a trunk filled with the rest of Julia's missing treasures.
Wow, so he robbed her blind.
Yep, from that moment forward, John was on the fast track to the gallows. Now, so basically, he was the prosecution.
Yep.
The city needed someone to pay. Gotta pay. Friends of Julia never specifically identified in court documents, but possibly members of the Virginia Fire Engine Company, among others, asserted that John would hang one way or another. The old way.
Yep.
Okay. So Judge Richard Risling, who had been presiding over the district court since it established some years before, and who had seen the results of vigilant justice in action, hoped to maintain order He would later write that during those days, many outrages and crimes were constantly being committed in this city, and to endure to create terror upon evildoers, I imposed very severe punishments. The trial lasted only one day,
Wow.
with not a single witness for the defense. John gasped. The language was poor. Despite some 15 years in American mining camps, he was uneducated and did not present well.
Exactly.
Okay. After a brief deliberation, the jury handed down the guilty verdict. The bell of the Virginia Fire Engine Number 1 pealed out in notes of joy. They were ringing bells down the street. This is the first instance I ever knew the public rejoicing over such a verdict where a man's life is at stake, and killed a prostitute. Yes. So John
Wow.
is so they also explained that John is the cruelest and most heartless murder of the age is beyond doubt. That he has been a professional strangler, and there is but little doubt. And his last confession will doubtless. Okay. Sorry about that. And terrible doubts that have shrouded several murders in California. So they basically started, and he was sentenced to hang and accepted the verdict with quiet composure.
Oh.
And that on July 5th. So the day after 4th of July, he was hung. And just so that you guys can see what this guy looked like, this is what this gentleman looked like. Now, looking at that picture, does he really look like he would be a murderer or a strangler? But back in the day, when you took pictures like that, that's a little better. Sorry for shakiness, but he didn't really look like he would be strangling anybody.
No, absolutely not.
But for a town, a mining town, to rejoice and clang the things that somebody's getting lynched because they killed a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where the fire department would rejoice because she also was there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And doing stuff. So you had heard of this murder before?
I have, absolutely.
And what did you hear? Anything different than what we talked about?
No, nothing different at all. No,
Kind of the same?
kind of the same. I've actually got the pleasure of visiting her gravesite. We'll eventually take you there and show you that at some point. But it's really cool. It says, yeah, she was very prominent of this town back in those days.
Yeah, and it was also unusual for a woman to be in a fire department.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Especially in the West, where it was, women don't have much rights in the 1880s. You weren't voting. So, and you were, like if you had a baby, it was the wife of John had a child. It wasn't, oh, Mary, wife of, why Mary and John had a baby. So it's kind of woohoo, woman power.
Yeah,
That she was really good enough to do all that.
absolutely.
That's kind of weird. If there's more other murders that you guys know about that you'd like to hear about, well, we're going to give you more. So, but yeah.
Let us know, definitely. Especially here, if anything in Nevada you want to hear about.
Yeah, towns. We're doing all kinds of research and bringing up all kinds of things in our archives, and it would be great to know that. Okay, so the next thing that we also like, we both love the mystic and ghost stories and psychics and all that kind of stuff. And to keep on within the Comstock area in Virginia City, I know a lot of people have seen hauntings, and that Virginia City and Gold Hill and Silver City all have major hauntings. And they do. And a lot of people have probably seen Ghost Adventures. That crew, Zach Braff and his crew has been out to Virginia Cities many, many times and has witnessed things. And go ahead and go to their show. And there's a couple other podcasts on ghosts. Bridget Marcoux, that used to be on, um, the bunnies, Playboy Bunny,
Yeah.
the show. Bridget Marcoux also has a podcast in regards to ghost stuff, and she's had Holly Madison on there, and they've done a thing where they did a seance with and Hugh Hefner had come through.
Wow. Okay.
So she has those on her podcast. You can go through and see, and because she's all into that too. But I'm just going to briefly tell you one of the most haunted places that you've seen is the Silver Queen Hotel in Virginia City. And if you haven't been to Virginia City, and we'll take you in there and at a later podcast and show you, that's also where they have that silver dollar dress.
Yes, absolutely. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. I want to show you a picture of that.
Yes. So the most haunted place in that hotel is room 11.
Didn't know that.
And it's said to be haunted by a female spirit named Rosie. Now, Rosie, again, I guess I should have said this was the Prostitute podcast, but it's not, was also a young prostitute.
How about that?
Who actually committed suicide in the late 1800s. But she committed, and she didn't commit suicide in a bed. She didn't jump off of a railing.
What happened to her?
She killed herself in a bathtub. She slit her own wrist.
Oh, how horrible.
Yes. So apparently how she makes her presence known is she rattles doorknobs, phantom footsteps, and disembodied voices only within that room.
Okay.
So it's not walking up and down staircases or anything else like that, but it's in her room. Now, I haven't been to room 11. I've been to the Silver Queen.
I have Wells.
And I've been to, it might have been the Silver Queen where I did one of those murder mystery dinners.
Oh, nice.
And you get a sense that yes, there's people watching or there's people hanging out or whatever else like that. But I haven't experienced anything like that yet. And I say yet because I would really love to do that. I really, really would. Okay. The other thing that we do, so we will talk more hauntings. And so we are into spiritual, and it can be all kinds of spirituality. It can be the Indians, because, and when I'm saying Indians, I mean Native Americans. We live in Paiute country.
Yes, we do.
And Shoshone country. And there's another one. Starts with a W. Wits. Okay. Anyways, I'm not going to spend all this time trying to dwell on that. But we will turn around and we are going to pull some medicine cards. And we're just going to pull one medicine card.
Okay.
And I know you guys can't see them. These are them. And the cards do have animal spirits on them. And the animal spirits can mean anything that's going on. And we are going to pull something for listeners, for ourselves. And this isn't about love or anything else like that. It's just, hey, what do we need and what should we watch out for? And in your days, maybe you see an animal and a consistent animal that comes in your life. And if you do, we would like to hear about it. And sometimes we live where there's ground squirrels and whatever, but they might be reacting a little different than normal. Crow might always come and you might hear it caw too much. And that could end up meaning something. So let us know. And I'm going to have Rosa, we are going to pick something for our visitors. Ooh, coyote.
Ooh.
Now, coyotes are very much always around us. And coyotes mean many different things. And hang on a second. I'm going to read this, by the way, because it's number 13. It is very interesting. A coyote is known as a trickster, so a jokester. And one of the sayings in the American Native is a coyote, you devil. You tricked me once more. Must I sit and ponder what you did it for? So the coyote is a trickster. There are thousands of myths and stories about Coyote, the great trickster. Many native cultures call Coyote the medicine dog. I probably should have worn my glasses. Sorry. If you have pulled this card, you can be sure that some kind of medicine is on its way, and it may or may not be to your liking. Whatever the medicine is, good or bad, you can be sure it will make you laugh, maybe even painfully. You can be sure the coyote will teach you a lesson about yourself. Coyote has many magical powers, but they do not always work in his favor. His own trickery fools him. He is the master trickster who tricks himself. No one is more astonished than Coyote at the outcome of his own tricks. He falls into his own trap, and yet he somehow manages to survive. He may be banged and bruised by the experience, but he soon goes his own way to even greater error, forgetting to learn from his mistakes. He may have lost the battle, but he is never beaten. Coyote is sacred in the folly of his acts. He sees our own foolishness. As Coyote moves from one disaster to the next, he refrains the art of self-sabotage to sheer perfection. No one can blindly do themselves or others with more grace and easy than his holy trickster. Coyote's takes himself so seriously at times that he cannot see the obvious. For example, the steamroller that is about to run him over, like Wile E. Coyote. That is why, when it hits him, he still cannot believe it. Was that really a steamroller? I better go look, he says, and he is run over once more. Kind of like the coyote and
Mhm.
in the Roadrunner cartoons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Contained within trickster medicine is the humor of the ages. The comic joke is not just on ourselves, but on everyone else. If they are following coyote, or have strong coyote medicine. Someone like this may be able to convince others that the skunk smells like roses, but the fact remains that it is still a skunk.
Yep.
Sometimes snooze is over, and if you have pulled the coyote medicine card, watch out. Your glass house may crash to the ground at any moment. All your self mirrors may shadow. I know this sounds really bad, but keep going, okay? The divine trickster is dog giving you, and you may trip. Coyote scratches under his arm. He does a crazy dance. He catches his tail on fire, playing with matches. He jumps in the fish pond to save himself and nearly drowns. Coyote seduces a concrete statue. Coyote thinks he has found a bone, but it is a rattlesnake. Everyone watches the comedic scene. Coyote is you, me, booby traps, jetliners with toilets that don't work, blind dates, and all humorous and whimsical things we encounter along life's way. Get ready for more of the laughs, lots more. Go immediately beneath the surface of your experience. Ask yourself whatever you are really doing and why. If coyotes, your medicine, are you playing jokes on yourself? Are you trying to fool any adversary? Is someone tricking you?
Hmm.
Do you want to give the office geek the phone number of a beautiful new secretary?
Probably not.
Or do you want to pull a prank on your best friend? When was the last time you did something just because it was crazy and fun? On the other hand, you may not be conscious of your own pathway of foolishness. You may have conned yourself, your family, your friends, or even public at large into believing that you know what you are doing. But listen, Coyote, you are balled up in your own mischievousness. You have created a befuddling, bewildering, and confounding trick. Pick up the juggler eyes and ground and put them back in their sockets. See through the genius of your acts of self sabotage. Find it amusing and laugh, trickster. If you can't laugh at yourself and your crazy antics, you have lost the game. Coyote always comes calling when things get too serious. The medicine is laughter, and joking is the new viewpoint of amusement. So it's basically saying, make sure you laugh at yourself. We're going to do that. And
Absolutely.
turn around and don't always take yourself seriously. If you feel like you're getting super serious, turn around and have a witty moment. And sometimes you can be a biddy, but you got to be witty and make yourself laugh and make your friends laugh.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, we've made you laugh, given you something to think about. And we only talked about a couple things, but keep listening because we're going to do other things. That's going to be word association, music. We didn't hit everything this time, but we will on the next episode. Thank you
Thank
and
you.
have a great day. Bye.
Bye.